So, has the new Sony FX5 given you gear acquisition syndrome? Because I think it probably has a lot of people. I got a slight case of that myself when I watched the rollout videos, just a little over 4 hours ago as of this recording. And yeah, just like any new camera, you know, I get excited, even though I've never used a Sony before in my life. Always kind of shied away from it, but man, that thing has got some specs that just, yeah, makes you want to let loose of some money. But, you know, but do I need it? No. Do you need it? I don't know, maybe. If you need it, you know it. And, you know, if you're sitting there drooling over it and looking at the specs and watching all the YouTube videos, trying to figure out, you know, and trying to justify it, then, you know, chances are you probably don't need it, but would it work for you? You're going to find some use for it? Absolutely. You know, I think that's the thing is, you know, all these cool specs and gadgets and things like that, you know, you don't need probably 90% of them, as in need, but, you know, can you find a use for them? And probably will you find a use for them if you've got them? Because, you know, once you buy something like that, you're like, well, I bought it, so now I got to find a use for it. So, you know, you start finding ways to implement those things into your workflow and into your case use. But, you know, I'm recording this video on my Blackmagic original pocket cinema camera. You know, this thing is 13 years old, and you know, I'm recording the audio on my iPhone here, and so it's probably going to sound like crap, but that's what I got. You know, my computer, I was looking the other day, you know, I built it in 2011, so, you know, we're coming up on 15, almost 16 years old for my computer. So I don't always have the latest, greatest gear. My stills camera, I'm a Nikon user. It's a D300, bought it in 2009. So, you know, I haven't bought a lot of new camera gear over the last several years. In fact, the Blackmagic pocket camera OG that I'm filming on was the latest camera gear that I bought. So, but, you know, it's like you see these new things, and I've been lusting over a Nikon ZR, you know, because I've always liked Nikon, even when I started, you know, photography years ago. When I was a kid, my dad had a Nikon FE that I learned to shoot film. Loved that camera. It was great. Manual focus, manual everything. It did have aperture priority as the only auto setting it had. But, you know, I learned a lot from that camera, and always loved Nikon, their lenses, their build quality. I've had a few Nikons over the years. Started off on that FE, then I finally got autofocus with the Nikon, I think it was the N6006. Used that up until it died. Then I jumped into digital. I got a D100 that I used for several years until I felt like I needed to jump up to the D300 finally. And I'm still using that. So I bought that in 2009, so it's 17 years old. I've had that camera for 17 years, and I still love it. I still, you know, I look at some of the newer cameras, and just like anything else, I look at, you know, the specs, and I see the videos on YouTube like you guys do, and, you know, I want to upgrade. I need to upgrade, and then I pull out some files. I go out and shoot with it, and I'm just like, you know what? These look gorgeous. This is just amazing. So I did the same thing today. I went out for a walk this morning, took my pocket cinema camera with me on my morning walk, and just shot a little bit of some video along the way, and I'll put that here at the end of the video. And, you know, every time I look at the images from this camera, I'm just like, that's just gorgeous. You know, is it as good as, like, you know, some of this 4K, 6K? No, but it has character. And, you know, am I just using that as a crutch, saying, oh, well, you know, it's got character, that's, you know, better than this? You know, for me, and at my stage, you know, I'm 51 years old. I'm an aspiring, I want to, you know, be a creative and start creating some films and videos. You know, I don't have any aspirations of ever, you know, making it as, you know, the next Quentin Tarantino or you know, making it to Hollywood, or just never been my dream. I just would like to make some good content that people enjoy and tell a good story. So that's the journey I'm on. And for right now, you know, this Pocket does it. As far as image quality, I love the image quality, and that's the most important thing to me. And 1080p is fine. You know, I mean, that's you know, Blu-ray quality. So, you know, I think it still looks great to my eye, and it's good enough for me. You know, to me, the story and a good image is king. You know, am I denying that the other cameras have probably superior image quality? No. Probably easier to work with too. Having the ability to have a little bit of autofocus every now and then would be awesome. But honestly, I would probably tend towards cinema lenses at this point. I would like to build up a good set of cinema lenses that you could, you know, PL mount, that I can switch onto any type of camera. So, you know, it would be nice though to have autofocus for a camera that has cinema quality video, and codecs, you know, like the R3D and the ZR, which I love. I've always wanted a red, and you know, even thought about, you know, picking up a DSMC2 on the used market, because my God, they're out there, and that's hefty. I do like the small form factors of the newer cameras. So I don't know. That is something I'd like to play with eventually, though. And, you know, the prices are only going to keep dropping because everybody wants the newest, latest, and greatest. So, you know, you can still pick up these great cameras, you know, once everybody else has moved on to the next big thing. And to me, I think that's an awesome opportunity, especially for somebody like me that's on a budget, still wants good quality. Because you know what? Go back and watch some of the films that those were made on. Are those diminished in any way because they weren't filmed on the newest camera? You know, I mean, my God, go back and look at the movies that were shot on actual film. You know, the latitude, the dynamic range wasn't there, but we still love it, you know. Anyway, we make too much about some of the specs, and just, so anyway, I guess the long and short of this video is, if you have gear acquisition syndrome due to the announcement of this new Sony FX5 or any new camera or lens or gadget, my advice is just to go out, shoot with the equipment you got, or go back and look at some of the the projects and things that you've shot with that, and just look at the footage. I bet you're going to be impressed, and if you really get down to it, there's no reason to upgrade. Do you want, you know, just probably just not. But hey, if you've got the money, or it's just time, or that gives you a little bit of more creative gas in your tank to get out and do something, if you get a new piece of gear, which I know it does me, you know, by all means go for it. But, you know, don't feel like you have to have that. Don't let that hold you back. I've let things like that hold me back from getting out and create something, because I'll just wait till I get this next thing, and I save up and I wait, and it's like, I could be out there creating something. Why am I waiting on a piece of gear that honestly isn't going to add anything to the process? Might make it a little easier on me, but you know what? Get my hands dirty. Get out there and do something. That's what filmmaking should be about. Is problem solving. You know, constraints build creativity. You know, you got to find a way to work around those constraints, whether it be your camera or your audio. I mean, this is going to suck the audio. I apologize for that. But you know, you just figure out ways to get it done and create what you want to create. Get your vision done, and then you find where you fell short, and then you concentrate on those areas and do a better job next time. You know, maybe it does require getting some better gear that solves that problem. Maybe it's just honing the technique, but you'll never know till you get out there and just try. If you always have the right tool for the job, you're never going to grow. Maybe that sounds stupid, but you know, it's kind of like, you know, lifting weights. You know, it's the resistance. It's the not having every answer handed to you that causes you to expand your viewpoint and your abilities. So, That's going to set you apart from a lot of other people that are just looking for somebody to give them the answer or give them the equipment that can solve that problem. You know, if you can solve that same problem on your own without having to dish out a lot of money, I think you're a lot better off for it. I think it's going to make you a more sought after creative person, because you're going to be able to get things done without having to wait. You're going to be able to think on the fly and solve things on the fly. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. So yeah,